Hello, I'm Katie.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jed.
And welcome to Untitled, the Jackson District Library podcast where we talk about all things books, movies, games, and other media, plus some library-ish things too.
Today, we'll be talking to Jen from our Community Engagement Department about the Firekeeper's daughter.
But before we get started, I want to thank you for checking us out. We really want to connect with you, our community, and help you to find new material to read, watch, and play. We started out by recording first chapters, which is now one of the segments, but it evolved into what you're listening to now. We really hope you email us at podcast@myjdl.com and tell us what you think. Ask us a question or just say hey.
So, without further ado, let's talk about what's new and coming up at JDL in October.
Let's start off with our new materials to keep an eye out for.
So October is perfect for curling up with a thought-provoking book full of intrigue. And so we've curated what we feel are your must-reads for the month. But you should also note that there are new releases by some of your favorites, like John Grisham, Colleen Hoover, and Cormac McCarthy.
You're going to want to get on the holds list for all those, especially Colleen Hoover, because of her book talk explosion.
Very big
Get
right
on the
now.
holds list earlier than later, or you may be waiting a long time to get that book.
So let's start with Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. She's the author of Little Fires Everywhere, and she returns with a new release for October. It's set in a dystopian America where libraries are very censored and authorities can relocate children of those who resist, particularly those of Asian descent. So this is a piece about the search for family, underground networks, and defying power.
Well, this has immediately sparked my interest, being focused on libraries.
Yes, and also Little Fires Everywhere was a great read, and I appreciated it on Hulu, I think.
Gotcha. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, do it.
Up next, we have Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. Jodi Picoult partners with Jennifer Finney Boylan with a work on families of divorce, with the plot centering on a woman's son accused of murdering his girlfriend. Interestingly, Jodi Picoult researches for her writing by immersing herself into the world she's writing about. I'm sure this book is the same and centers around a moral question she's wrestling with.
So we also have The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I don't love describing him as a Twitter influencer, but that's exactly what he is. He's been described as a social media activist and is writing the most anticipated YA queer book of the year. And now he's releasing a prequel to his TikTok book, They Both Die at the End. So it's about Deathcast, a new app which promises that it can predict the date of your death. And diagnosed with a heart condition, Orion immediately signs up. But on the other hand, Valentino only registers after his sister's near-death experience. When Orion and Valentino meet in Times Square, their lives are changed forever when one of them receives a call from Deathcast and the other doesn't.
So I've already heard some buzz for this on Reddit. So this is pretty exciting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know that Adam Silvera is much loved as an author and has gone through a lot with people attempting to ban their books in a lot of libraries, particularly it was Texas that I saw. And so I always try to read extra the books of authors that are struggling with censorship.
Definitely give them that support.
Mm-hmm.
The last book we have to talk about is one that's really interesting. If you're a fan of the Harry Potter books or grew up watching the Harry Potter films, especially here, this one is called Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton, who starred as Draco Malfoy. Felton gives readers a behind-the-scenes to life growing up as a wizard, yet still attending high school like any other teen. Felton also discusses the lasting friendships he made on the set, as well as the highs and lows of viral fandom. This book is great for fans of Harry Potter, celebrity memoirs, and behind-the-scenes looks at what it's like to be a movie star.
On to the new releases for movies and TV series for the month of October. And this first one is kind of near and dear to my heart. It's Bel-Air Season 1. This is an edgy take on the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air series. A fan created a YouTube trailer with his idea. Will Smith saw it and loved it and then produced it. So it's funny, dramatic, sticks to the original point, but is well produced with a much more engaging storyline than you saw in the original series. So this is one to look for if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's really cool. I didn't know that was the inception of how it even went to the big screen. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it kind of went viral, that trailer, before it was even, produced. And so it really had this following before it launched. And so that's why I was interested in it, because I love how things happen and celebrities catch on to them. So yes, they are watching.
Do you feel like this is a good watch for fans of the original?
Yes, I enjoyed it. And my husband, who's a little bit younger than I am and didn't catch the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air craze, loved it too. It's not the slapstick comedy, but it still has humor. And you can see all of the same characters with a modern edge.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, we got a lot of TV series to talk about out of the gate here. So the next one is Winning Time. This is a series that specifically focuses on the Lakers' historic run in the late 70s and 80s. It is predominantly focused on Magic Johnson, but it also talks about the other amazing celebrities or stars on the team, specifically Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's an awesome little snapshot insight into the time, place, and culture. Really fun, really engaging. So I thoroughly enjoyed the first season.
Did I see that it has Adrian Brody too? Because he's one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, it's got A-listers down the row. I really do like that. For the most part, the team is featuring new, younger actors. That is like their first big role. So
that's cool.
It really helps sell buying into them being that real life figure.
I love that. I'm going to have to watch it with my child who's a basketball player. I think they'd really like it.
They would really enjoy it. Yeah. It's fun and very fast-paced and enjoyable with some depth to the story there.
Excellent. So to cap off our reflections on the series you should be watching, we have Sweet Tooth Season 1. I watched it on Netflix, and it's a real interesting take on an apocalyptic story. So the society's collapsed due to a viral pandemic known as the Sick, and it basically wiped out most of the world's population. And it also led to this mysterious emergence of hybrid babies that are part human and part animal. And no one really knows if hybrids are the cause of the virus or the result of the virus. And so people fear and hunt these hybrids. So anyway, Gus is a half deer hybrid, and he lives in the wilderness with his father. And his father dies when Gus is 9 years old. And Gus discovers a box buried by his father beneath a tree, and it contains what he believes is a photograph of his mother with the word Colorado written on it. And so I'll leave it with that, but it's just very engaging. I watched it straight through, and it's also based on a comic book series by Jeff Lemire.
I've, in the past, been recommended the comic book series, so when I'd seen it made that jump, it was really intriguing, so I'll definitely have to put this on my holds list.
You'll love it.
Yeah, just the blurb that you read through there sounds really intriguing. Well, on to movies now. We're going to feature two of them here. The first one is Bullet Train. So this is an action thriller with Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock, who, funny enough, had just appeared together in The Lost City. In Bullet Train, Brad Pitt stars as Ladybug, an unlikely assassin determined to do his job peacefully after one too many gigs gone off the rails. Fate, however, may have other plans, as Ladybug's latest mission puts him on a collision course with lethal adversaries from around the globe, all with connected yet conflicting objectives on the world's fastest train. The end of the line is just the beginning in this nonstop thrill ride. So this is a fun, quick-paced film. It is from David Leitch, who directed Deadpool. So if you like those films, it's kind of in that similar vein.
With that interesting kind of humor. And
quirky, kind of fun, quippy humor, action comedy.
Yeah. What I've noticed about Brad Pitt lately that I like is that he has the ability now. No, not lately. He has the ability now to pick his roles really carefully if he wants to and be choosy. He doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do. So, you saw that real small cameo in The Lost City, and now, he's doing something unique in Japan, and I find that very interesting that he's being so careful.
Yes, I do like that. Like in between his bigger roles, like Once Upon a Time, he's, in Hollywood, he's doing these fun little cameos or little things with interesting directors.
Yes.
Which I really appreciate.
Yes, and I think it speaks a lot to him and his love of the craft.
Yes, definitely. I mean, his production company, Plan B, is a great production company. They come out with some really cool shows and movies.
I appreciate your knowledge about all of that and how well researched.
I wish other people did. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you. Pay me for it.
You can always come to me. Up next, we have DC League of Super Pets. So this is an action adventure animation, and it stars Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, and Kate McKinnon. And I chose this one because it has Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Kate McKinnon. So Crypto the Super Dog and Superman are inseparable best friends, sharing the same superpowers and fighting crime side by side in Metropolis. However, Crypto must master his own powers for a rescue mission when Superman is kidnapped. That just sounds fun. I haven't seen it, but it will be on my holds list.
Yes, I think this will be a really cute family film. And also has adaptations for the Switch and other video game consoles. So if the family likes it, you can check that out at the library.
That's great.
Sadly, we aren't able to touch on every new thing that will be coming to our shelves. So be sure to keep an eye on the new shelves at your branch. But while you wait for those new releases, let's hear some JDL picks from our staff that you can get your hands on right now.
Our staff pick today comes from Carly, the branch manager for Parma and Springport branches. She writes, I've been reading the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. The first title in the series is Every Heart a Doorway. This is a series of related novelettes about the children who fall down the rabbit hole, stumble across the wardrobe, discover the magic stairs, and go to their very own fairyland, and then get kicked out. Now these kids and young adults want nothing more than to get back into the worlds that they left, the worlds that actually felt like home. But each of these worlds is different in levels of whimsy, logic, and danger, and not every wayward child is welcome back. This dark, twisty series is best for new adults/adults, but may be appropriate for some young adult readers.
And this adult reader, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm sold. I really like that concept. I've heard, people riff on that before with like, what happens to the kids after you leave Narnia? Like, that's got to change you.
Right.
And here we go. There's a series that addresses it.
I love that.
Looking for some material suggestions but want something more specific to you? Head to our website at myjdl.com and select the JDL Picks option under the Explore header at the top of the page. That will take you to a form where you can fill out all the specifics you're looking for. Within a few days, one of our staff members will email you with a list of materials they've selected based on what you asked for.
You can also ask to have them place holds for you, and so it's like a surprise on your hold shelf.
This is a great way to find new things by crowdsourcing information from your local librarians.
Next, we're going to highlight some of the events going on at JDL in October. So I'll start with Storyfest, which isn't technically in October, but it is the first week of November. And I think that you should mark this on your calendar now, which is why I'm talking about it now. It's the 35th anniversary of Storyfest in Jackson. It's a really big deal. And we're celebrating extra hard this year with some of our best and most favorite storytellers. We're bringing them back. And you'll be able to celebrate with us through some of the events that we're having. So it's November 2nd through 4th. And on November 2nd, you can bring the older adults that are a part of your life, or if you are an older adult for our Silver Tales program, which is going to be done at a local senior center and have storytelling by a professional storyteller who is really engaging. I've seen him. His name is Larry Castleberry, and he does lots of folk tales and fables and things with a message, and it's just super fun to be around, and so I'm very excited about that. November 3rd and 4th, we have professional storytellers coming into most of the local elementary and some of the local middle schools throughout the county. And they will be telling to all of the different grade levels, I think through 8th grade. And so if you'd like more information about that, you can either contact the library and ask if they're going to be at your child's school, or you can contact the local school. However, if you want a really fun and free night out with your family, you can come to our showcase on November 4th at 7 p.m. at the Jackson Symphony Orchestra. Show up and be a part of our celebration with our most favorite and most dynamic professional storytellers there. And we would love to have you for an evening of storytelling and fun. So hope to see you there. Like I said, it's November 2nd through 4th, so it's not technically October events, but I want you to mark it down now because it's great, and it's a terrific opportunity to celebrate the arts in a different way with your family and friends.
The program I'd like to talk about is Reading the Rainbow Teen Group. Bring your own material, bring along any book, comic, music, movie, TV show, or video game you enjoy, and share your interest with the group. This meeting also starts at 6 p.m. It will be held on the second floor of the Carnegie Library in the McIntyre Room. Make sure to check our calendar online for the exact dates. And this program is cool because it also is going to have a Zoom link, so if you can't attend in person, it'll be virtually available for you.
That's great, and some of our younger patrons will probably appreciate that. If they can't get to the local library, they can still hang out with us and have fun with some of their peers.
Yep, we'd love to have them.
Check out our events calendar at myjdl.com to find out more information about these events and to see what else we have going on. We always have plenty to explore.
Up next, we'll be interviewing Jen from our Community Engagement Department about The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley, so stay tuned for that. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jen. Would you like to tell us a bit about the book that you brought?
Absolutely. So, The Firekeeper's Daughter starts with just a fantastic cover. That's what really drew me into it. But it's a really great novel. It's a YA book about a girl who's kind of split between these two worlds. Her mother is white, her father was Ojibwe, and so trying to kind of find her place between these two communities. And then it really goes down into a meth investigation. There's murder. There's all kinds of different things in this book. So it throws a little bit of everything at you.
It sounds really eclectic. Just reading the reviews online have addressed it's like if you like romance, we got it. If you like crime, we got it. It's really interesting. And then to kind of address what you said at the opening there about the cover, everyone loves this cover.
It's beautiful.
A lot of the reviews start off with, I grabbed this because of the cover. Mm-hmm. And not only was it great, but the cover does something that's kind of unique where it hints on themes and other things in the book that you don't fully get until you finish the book, which I thought was an interesting way to approach that.
Yes, like even just right now looking down at it, there are so many little details that I'm noticing that I would have had no idea what that meant before I read the book. But yeah, it really goes into a lot of it just in this one illustration. It's gorgeous.
That's amazing. What a powerful presentation to be the author's first book too, to come out so strong like that.
Yes.
I also was really interested in something you said about how the main character feels divided and has to be a part of two different worlds. I imagine that's something a lot of teenagers probably experience today, whether it's ethnicity or children of divorce that have two different homes or, and I think there's a lot of different variations on that theme. So how do you feel about that? Is that pretty accurate how I've
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Donis in general is a very relatable character. I think that she's interesting enough to carry the story, but she's still, sort of bland enough that you can project a lot into her and kind of, take her role in the story, which is what a good first-person narrative does, right? So.
Especially for this type of story where it's really putting you into a culture and a place that's very unique. So if you can really buy in through the perspective of that character, it probably sells and invites you in on this culture that much more easily.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So this is the first book that Angeline published, correct?
Correct, yes. So just an incredible debut novel. And not only was it her debut, but she actually found out that she won 2 different awards for this book before it was even released. Her editors called her, pretending that they needed to go over some pages. 2 nights in a row they did this to her, and both times it was a ruse. It was actually to tell her that she had won this prestigious award. So I wish I could remember off the top of my head which ones they were, but...
I wish someone could do that for me.
Right?
It has to be
surprise, you're amazing.
It has to be the most validating experience.
Right.
To have been an author who published her first book at 54.
Yes.
And then before it even comes out, your feedback is just unanimously applauding it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So kind of addressing that, I do have a tweet by this author that I thought would be an awesome little tweet to read because it really feeds into, I believe, where this book is coming from and what it means. So this is from Angeline's Twitter. She says, "Dear aspiring writer, my great idea came at 18. then 3 kids, career, life, etc. I started writing at 44. At 54, I signed with an agent, sold debut at auction, optioned film rights to Higher Ground, the Obama's production company, and Netflix. Hashtag Firekeeper's daughter hit stores 316. I'm 55. Hashtag never give up.
That's amazing. What a good message.
I think that is wonderful.
I can kind of relate to it because I worked in marketing for over 20 years and I always wanted to go to library school. And finally, at age 44, I went, and I'll be finishing up before I hit 46. So, I mean, I think it's that kind of thing where even if there's things that you need to do in life that you know, keep holding on to those dreams. And if they are still there even 20 years later,
I think it's really easy over time to be critical or diminish your own dreams like that. But the show's like, regardless of any age, regardless if you want to write the quote unquote like great American novel, you have it in you.
Yeah.
There's no end point for that.
Yeah. And especially good for her to start the story at, you know, when she was 18, her dream, since this is a young adult novel that really speaks directly to her audience.
That's a great perspective. She's not like trying to put on airs or pretends to be another age. This comes from when she was a teen herself.
Yeah. Which also shows in the book it's set, you know, a few years back in 2004. So it really does draw on her own experiences too, but still a lot of the stuff is very relevant to today, most of the themes. So yeah, I think that that's a cool path that she's gone down.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's inspiring in general, but I think it's really inspiring because Angeline is from Michigan.
Yes.
So really inspiring, I think, for the local community, and especially since the book itself has lots of like Michigan cultural like touching points. Not only on like Ojibwe culture, but destinations, locations that we're familiar with as Michiganders.
Yes. And one thing that made me laugh, because I am not from Michigan originally, I've only lived back here for a year, but there is a part in the book where Donis is explaining to the new guy in town how to say Sault Ste. Marie, which is something that, you know, took me a while to learn too. Those little things like that, or Ypsilanti is the other one that I still have trouble with. So I like that the book kind of talks you through it if you're not from Michigan. This is how it works. This is how you say these things. So that was very helpful for me anyways.
That is a unique perspective to consider.
I hadn't thought about, you know, but for me, we are always saying those words and we grow up hearing them. But, you know, you grew up just outside Chicago, right?
Yes.
So, you know, why would you be familiar with Sault Ste. Marie and the weird spelling
especially
of it?
northern Michigan areas.
Right. Yeah, I know nothing about the UP. So this book was very enlightening in that way too.
That's great.
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting in the first chapter that there was an intersection between the traditional and the modern, right? So we hear things about the shorts she's wearing and, you know, some of the things that she's thinking, and Lake State University and the new dorm, which if you're from this region, you have a little more of an understanding of. But at the same time, she's immersed in this culture. And at first, in the opening, you don't realize what time it is, right? The time period until you get a couple of paragraphs in. And I was fascinated.
And that is something that goes on throughout the novel. That is actually one of my favorite parts about it, is that whole split between the two. And there's a whole section where she's going back and forth of she really wants to be a doctor, but there are also all of these, you know, practices from her Ojibwe culture that she truly believes in that really work for her. So trying to blend the two of the science and the tradition, and, you know, it's very cool in that it's all taken as fact, just right on the surface. All of the teachings of both of her cultures are just the baseline of where she builds her knowledge from.
Which is great, because that's an approach that we do see these days. We see a lot of people blending, you know, their love of their heritage and the modern day tools that they have access to. And I'm very interested in that dynamic.
Yeah, I do appreciate the more of the acceptance with like Western medicine of understanding that the validity behind other medicines from other cultures.
Yeah, and that plays into this book a lot. So I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a lot of that back and forth here.
Interesting. I didn't even know.
Yes, yeah.
That's some good intrigue though.
Right?
If you weren't excited before.
Exactly.
Let's talk about how the author pulled off this book. Considering it's Angeline's first book, how do you think the pacing of it went? How do you think the character development came across?
So I think the character development is great. I will say the pacing at the beginning is a little bit slow, which I didn't realize the first time I was reading it. And actually, I think reviews kind of influenced my view of that. But now going back through, and especially with a thriller when you're rereading it, because this has a thriller component to it. When you're going back and waiting for it to get to that point. Like, why are we still talking about your clothes? But after a few chapters, it really does pick up. And I think the first time I read it, I was just so into the world building of the first few chapters that I didn't mind it. But I can see how for some people it might seem slow in the beginning.
Before it gets into the thick of the mystery itself.
Yes, and then it just picks up so quickly, and there's so much going on and so much to keep track of. So
we got a sample of that first chapter there, a bit of that world building, but how do you think she pulled off the world building and laying the groundwork for when it really kicks into the thick of the mystery?
I think she does a really good job of kind of sneaking different hints in throughout the first few chapters, and you think something's going to be a minor detail, and then it ends up really being one of the focuses of the entire story.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love when those little groundworks or breadcrumbs are laid out.
Yes.
I had seen that Angeline Boulley had described this book as Indigenous Nancy Drew, which just sounded wonderful.
Right?
Like that alone has me interested.
Tagline.
Definitely. So you saying it seeds those little crumbs of the mystery ahead of time. That's just great mystery writing.
Yes, and especially from the first person perspective, because we see everything through Donis's eyes. So to have her just pick up on these little details that even she is kind of discarding right in the moment. And then she has to, in her memory, circle back to them.
Oh, the satisfaction that comes
I did
from
know
that.
this. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
I'm really fascinated by this. And the reason is with Angeline publishing at 54, did you say? So she's writing first person for an 18-year-old and having the perspective and the knowledge to know that their brains aren't formed yet. So even if, while she's doing this world building, is she intentionally thinking that an 18-year-old, despite what's going on around her, may come back to, oh man, I look good today, or here are my clothes, or, some things that we might feel a little bit more inane might be really important to an 18-year-old. And so I think, perhaps it was intentional, perhaps not, but I mean, I'm taking it that way as you're saying it. So
yeah, I love that.
Especially through the first person perspective. You're going to want, of course, the story unfolding, but you want those little asides that help build the character and make them feel like they are an existing, unique human being.
Yes, exactly. And we're all many things, right?
And we all have our little weird quirks and what have you.
Exactly, especially me.
Well, that's why we like you.
Thank you.
So since Angeline is talking about something that's not commonly discussed, which is Indigenous cultures, and being Indigenous themselves, specifically Ojibwe in Michigan here, do you feel like they did justice to Indigenous cultures in Michigan?
I would like to believe so. I will be honest, I knew next to nothing about Indigenous culture in Michigan going into this book, which is part of the reason I wanted to read it, right? And you do get a lot of information from this, and this is also her lived experience. She is Ojibwe. She did grow up in Michigan, so I have to assume that she has her facts right. But yeah, she really gives a great insight into the teachings, the more, present day in 2004, how things looked then too, which I thought was really fascinating.
I had seen several reviews that specifically mentioned I'm a Michigander myself, and this was eye-opening. I totally understand the region and my place within that so much better now because of this.
Yes.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's not something you get every day from a book, let alone a new book, a young adult book.
Right.
A mystery. I think that's pretty interesting combination of things that add up to why this has had the reception it has had.
Yes. And I think a lot of people realize that even though this is a young adult book, it really is for so many ages. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to smaller kids because of a lot of the content, but any adult could pick up this book and just really have a good time reading it, I think.
Awesome. That explains that reception.
I'll be doing that as soon as my hold comes in.
I'd say we've talked about a lot of cool books, but this one just hits. It checks off all these little pieces that add up to me being like really excited about talking about this one.
This is the one. This is the one.
And I actually do have a quote from the author about her purpose and intent, both in like writing and marketing. I don't know if we could use it, but I wrote it down just in case. But she said, I thought that people would pick up the book for the thriller aspect, but when they turned that final page and closed the book, what was going to stay with them was the themes of coming of age and grief and identity and justice, or rather injustice. And
That's
I thought
great.
that was fascinating because
I
that
love
really
that.
does.
That illustrates kind of the depth that is to be found.
Yes. Yeah. There's so much to this book. And so I don't want people to write it off just because it's a YA book. It's part of the Reese Witherspoon book club. Who cares? No, it's got a lot going on.
See, it's part of the reason I was so surprised when I found out that it was a YA book is usually, going through the reviews that we do or the preparation for the podcast here. A lot of people always will knock down
Yes.
YA or are more dismissive of it. And when I was going through reviews, I didn't see a lot of those things that you are used to seeing when it comes to young adult.
Yes.
And so when I found out it was really surprising. And it seems like this is really breaking through, like we mentioned earlier, breaking through ages and interest and backgrounds.
Yes, definitely.
So, Jen, were you left with any questions after you finished the book?
Ooh, that's a wonderful question. I don't know. I feel like there was kind of a restlessness when I finished it because, like she said, you really are left with this sense of injustice. There's a lot about, especially the difference of being on tribal land versus U.S. soil is such a small thing. But from a federal law enforcement standpoint, it makes a huge difference. And that's really illustrated in the book and in some of the things that happen. So just things like that are just thrown in there are really, really stick with you, I think.
I'm even more excited. I hope I come up quick in the queue.
Oh, for the holds?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, I keep
Oh,
talking
you know
about it,
what?
but I'm
Just,
that excited about this read.
Just take this one when we're done recording.
We do like to look ahead of time to see how the
I will.
holds list is.
You do work right next to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
you already have a bunch of my checkouts in your office, so
Okay, it's a deal.
I am curious to see what the holds list is looking like for this because we do
Yeah.
like to be like, hey, if you're interested in this item,
Yeah,
you can grab it
right.
now at it's on the shelf or not. So
and that's
I'm gonna
this
look
only
real quick.
took like a day or two for me to get. And we do have e-copies available as well. I
Oh,
know.
okay.
I've got one of them checked out right now, but I will be returning it. So that's why the timing seemed good because I feel like every time I tried to recommend this book right after I read it, the holds list was always enormous. It was never on the shelf.
Go figure.
So it was hard to actually recommend it to a patron.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm like, I'll hang back. I'll wait just a little bit until it's not
Exactly.
popping. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
feel like I'm taking a book from a patron too.
Right.
It's the
That's
guilt
how
of
I
being
feel.
a
I
librarian.
struggle with that.
Yep. Well, thank you for talking to us about Firekeeper's Daughter. Is there anything that you are excited that's coming up soon, or anything that you have read or watched or played that you're super into?
Yeah, so one that I will be honest is a couple years old, but right now what I'm working through reading wise is Lore by Erin Mankey, which is also a podcast. So if you're into spooky stuff or ghost stories or
Yes.
even just just folklore kinds of things, he kind of touches on all of it, which is really interesting. So both the podcast and the book recommend. I think the book is actually just scripts of the podcast on paper. So it really reads exactly like it sounds when you listen to the podcast.
Big fan. Really do like Lore. If you dig Lore the podcast, which I highly recommend, there is an Amazon Prime series of only 2 seasons
Yes, that's
that
right.
adapt some of the episodes. So if you're more of a visual person instead of a listener, that's out there as well. And it's great for the season we're about to head into.
Yes, definitely.
Can I also plug Morbid, which is my favorite cryptid and true crime and
Oh, please. This is
ghost
turning into a spooky
podcast.
podcast
Right?
conversation.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's
I'm all
almost the
for this.
spooky season. So I listen to Morbid every day right now because there's nearly 400 episodes and I'm going backwards. So I will listen, and I may have voluntold Jen to listen on the way here because we drove together, and today's episode is all about things you find in the forest.
It was fascinating. I
Yeah.
loved listening to it.
So anyway, that's my suggestion for all of you today. Morbid. And really, the true crime really focuses on the victims and giving them a real honorable story and the viciousness of the crime that was done to them. And it really honors the victims and their families in a really respectful way.
Well, sounds great. Thank
Yeah,
you both
I
for
love
the
it.
suggestions.
Sure.
This sounds something I'm definitely going to have to get loaded up on my podcast.
Yeah.
I may have just followed lore too. Okay.
You should, yes. All right, and
listened
one
to-
more book recommendation for
Oh.
spooky season. I read it a while ago, so I don't remember all the details, but Ghostland by Colin Dickey. Have either of you read this or heard of
No.
it? Oh my goodness, it was so good. So I read it in Ohio. We'll have to make sure that JDL has a copy. But it really, so his perspective is more, he's kind of a skeptic about ghost stories. So he really goes into the different reasons why places feel creepy and how different stories got started, both the history, the legends, the cultures that came in there, but even with a haunted house, how things like architecture can really throw something off and make a place feel haunted because the angles aren't quite right, and that's why you feel unsettled in a place. And I just thought that was fascinating.
That is really interesting.
That is really, really interesting. I see that we
Yeah.
have one copy at the Meyer branch. So
Fantastic.
whatever lucky
Snatch
listener
it
wants to
up.
grab that, definitely go ahead. But
Yeah.
oh man, that's going to end up on my holds list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was so good.
All right, Jen, we always like to ask the people that we're interviewing if they'd like to hang around for our reviews of the book. We like to compare 1 stars versus 5 stars that we found on the internet.
Fantastic. Yes.
Awesome. Cool.
I'm going to get started with a 1-star review by Dayanara Rael of Goodreads. She says, I was interested in this until I read an interview with the author bragging that she didn't include a glossary as part of getting the story away from a white-focused gaze. Do you know what a pain in the ass it is to find translations for uncommon languages like Anishinaabe-Owen? I'm sure you think the words are clear just by the context, but odds are good they won't be. I imagine Deborah Harkness felt the same way about A Discovery of Witches, and I still curse her black and blue for not including Occitan translations. I'd like to support a fellow Michigan author, but not like this. No thanks.
Well, it's an interesting point. I've seen in several reviews address how they had wished that there was a glossary in the back as well, so they could see the definitions of the words that appear throughout the book, which makes sense. I totally get it. At the same time, I do like how in the films will do this approach as well, where characters will speak their native language, and you as an audience member, you as a reader, are meant to feel like slightly separated from that because it helps you buy into that character's world. Like you're seeing them presented exactly who they are, and there's no catering, which I think is kind of an interesting way to approach your book.
It really defines, I think it provides definition to the idea that she's living in 2 different worlds, right? And perhaps other people don't understand that world. Likely they don't understand that world. And I think that's just an illustration. And maybe she wasn't bragging about it, but she intentionally did it because she wanted to show a concept. And I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a really great point because she is mixed race, so she has those 2 worlds within her. So that's kind of what we're getting as a reader from her. You're getting both of those perspectives.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do think that whenever she switches languages, it is really seamlessly done. And I will say, I didn't see this in a lot of the reviews, maybe just because it is a more common language to know and easier to look up. But there's also a lot of French in the book that is not translated either, because Donis actually knows 3 languages. So those, switching between languages mid-sentence happens in a couple different directions, which is really interesting.
Well, and I know those that do speak multiple languages, sometimes they're speaking in multiple languages in their head, you know? But
in the same sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it comes across, because it usually is in her inner monologue that happens, those language shifts. So
I really like that. The sound of
Yeah.
it feels like you're very much thrown into that character's perspective and place, which for a book, in my opinion, that's what you want.
Yes. And also, as someone who is currently trying to help teach her son how to read, I will say I feel like we always push kids to look up unfamiliar words when they're learning how to read. You know, if you come across a word you don't know, just look it up. Why shouldn't teens and adults be held to the same standard? You know,
that's
especially with
interesting.
such a popular book. All of
great
these
point.
phrases by now are very Googleable. You start typing them in and it pops right up. So it probably was harder when this person was reviewing it, but now that the book has really sold so well, it's a lot easier to find those translations.
You know, that kind of brings me to a topic I've always been interested in, which is how people interact with media, and you have passive or active. So you can choose to just let something play or read. but you can choose to actively participate into it. And it seems like this one, if you choose to, that participation's there, and it seems rewarding.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good way of putting it.
I love that idea, Jed.
Yeah.
Thanks. I always feel that way about movies.
Yeah.
Like people complain about it. I'm like, did you give it something or did you just let it happen? Especially with music and stuff. It's like, did you participate with it? Because a lot of people view it as just a passive activity. Going to see a movie, it's just pastime.
Yeah. I've recently learned I can pause a movie while I'm watching and think about it and come back to it. That's something I've always felt like I needed to watch it straight through.
Right.
But I've really tried to be more cognizant of things that I'm very interested in. The most recent being White Lotus, which is a great series on HBO. Should anyone need a new series to watch? But there was so much to think about within it. And I didn't always have the time, and it wasn't always appropriate for my children. And so I really intentionally paused it, thought about it, and then came back to it. And I think that's an example of what you were talking about, is giving that time to it that it deserves.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that.
The first 5-star review I'm going to read is from Jackie. This is another review from Goodreads. It starts off with 5 stars. Firekeeper's Daughter is a stunning debut. The standout is definitely the Ojibwe community. The use of language, traditions, and culture create a vivid world, as well as some memorable characters. I loved everything about this book. I went into this one completely blind, and it was really an emotional sucker punch. I'm purposely keeping things vague, as the less you know going in, the better.
That almost makes me wonder if we've given too much information, but you and I haven't read it.
No, and I feel like I've been trying to take the same approach of just keeping it very vague because there is a lot that goes on. And it really is a lot better to go into it cold.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that we've done a decent amount of conversation that focuses on that world building, that first 50 pages.
Yeah.
But really what comes thereafter, we've only lightly touched on, and that's where the meat of the book rests.
Definitely, yes.
Great point. So I have a 1-star review from Niels from Amazon.com. They say, can we leave the I'm not like other girls trope in 2021? Why did I have to read in the year of our Lord 2022 about a girl who has internalized misogyny the entire time while also trying to solve a crime? This would have been cool if the main character weren't a boring nerd. The one thing I did actually like was reading and learning about Indigenous culture. That was really cool. But I just give up on this one. The pacing is awful. It's supposed to be a thriller. Something's not adding up here. I regret buying the physical copy of this. I should have taken it as a sign when the library didn't have it available to check out.
Which is not a problem you'll have at JDL because we do have copies available to check out.
Hey, there you go.
That also may mean that a lot of people are liking it and reading it.
Right? That was my first thought here, too.
Yeah.
So, Jen, what do you feel about the I'm not like the other girl trope? I feel like...
Yeah, it's something that I didn't really realize was there, but they do have a point. There are some moments where it does feel like that, especially because Donis is very into hockey. She's very talented. And so there is a little bit of comparing herself to the girls who are hockey fans versus herself as a hockey player. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's something that I picked up on, but they're certainly not wrong, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Do you feel like it borders into vapid, or do you feel like it's the natural want of a teen to be constantly comparing yourself against other people? I feel like that's a bit natural.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And I think that Donis does really have that a lot, especially since she is in this, kind of middle ground torn between these two communities. I feel like she's constantly comparing herself to everyone. So you're right.
That's
yeah,
a great
I think
point.
that's
When
definitely
she's
where it comes in.
pulled between cultures or perspectives.
Yeah.
That would kind of naturally bubble up.
Right. For sure.
She might be asking herself, well, what can I do that's not like the other girls? It may, again, I'm coming back to the intentions of Angeline Boulley, but is that a question that she had while she was writing? Is that something that as she was narrating the story, she thought, what are the things that someone who stands out would do?
Yeah.
My next 5-star review comes from Mara from Goodreads. This one actually starts out with 4.5 stars. I'm not sure if it was just my mood or the book itself, but this one really destroyed me emotionally. That's a compliment, by the way. This was much harder hitting than I expect from a young adult, but it felt totally earned. Often in young adult thrillers, I feel like there's the attempt to make teen characters relatable by making them overly cynical and angsty in a way that rings a bit hollow. This is a great example of a young adult thriller that has our characters going through it in a way that completely makes sense for the situation and keeps a level of emotional realism that I appreciated. I was so moved by the way this incorporated the real situations that Native women and girls are put into all too often into a page-turning thriller. Totally recommend, particularly as a transition book for young adult readers starting to grow into adult books or adult readers looking for a gateway into young adult literature. Strong content warnings for drug use, abuse, sexual assault, and racism.
I really liked this review because I feel like it put into words a lot of the things that I was thinking, especially the way that Donis isn't as cynical. And I feel like in young adult books especially, there's a tendency for the main character to kind of lash out at a lot of different people. Like there's always, the fight with the best friend or whoever. And that doesn't really happen as much in this book. And that's actually something I really like about the slower pacing in the beginning too, is that it feels like you're just in the normal mundane routine of a teenager who's not in school right now, because it starts over the summer where every day is kind of the same. And then all of a sudden, all of these twists and turns start coming for her and they really don't let up. And she does react to everything in a very relatable and realistic way, I think.
I definitely appreciate that. In young adults, it's hard to get the tone of a teen character. So the fact that she was able to pull that off so well, I appreciate this review saying it's a young adult thriller that has our characters going through it, capitalized. Yes. I really appreciate that you can see that the characters, how they're reacting, evolving in this scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Their motivations are always very clear and very, very relatable and understandable, I think.
Also, I'm in my personal life with reading fiction, sometimes I struggle to find something really good that I can just get into that just really grabs me. And I always find myself going back to YA fiction. And the reason is because I spend a lot of time reading academic works or finding articles or strategizing for my job. And I really want something that I don't have to think about, that I just get the entertainment value with the think piece on top of it, right? So it's gripping and it's easy. And I think that that's an important thing to note too about the idea adults moving into YA as a gateway, right?
Yeah, like it's not age defined. It's a great category to go into and offer variety to your reading.
One of my coworkers actually put this in an interesting way for me a couple of weeks ago. They said that they often, when talking to patrons about getting back into reading, so these patrons have had a hard time continuing reading as an adult, and they always say, oh, I loved reading as a teen, and I just can't get back into it now that I'm an adult. I don't have time or interest or whatever. He always says, what'd you read as a teen? And then he directs them back to the YA section because there's just something about it. If they liked that work then, maybe not now. And he says it always seems to work for him. And I just want to provide that suggestion for anyone else who might struggle a little bit to get back into reading. Don't be afraid or ashamed of what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so huge. I feel like there are a lot of adults who are very ashamed to go into the teen section, the young adult section, but there are so many good books there. I feel like I keep seeing this meme about, adult fiction is about sad people falling in and out of love. And teen fiction is about, people rising up and saving the world and fighting the bad guys. And so, yeah, of course it's going to be interesting.
It's a great point. I love that.
Everyone needs a bit of that in their life.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I had heard from a coworker of mine at the East Branch. They had mentioned that they had went through this book through the audiobook version, which we do have several copies, and we have a digital audio as well for our services. And they said that was a really great way to go through this book. They really enjoyed the narrator, and it unfolded just as well as if you had read it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I have not gotten a chance to listen to it yet, but everyone says that it's just amazing.
I have a 1-star review by Ziggy from Amazon, and they say it's a very slow-moving read. That's the heading. They go on to say, very slow-moving. Took quite a while to even know where the book was going. Struggled to hold my attention because it just didn't have energy. Rather dark read.
Again, they're not wrong. I actually at first thought that this was one of the good reviews because it says that it's dark, and but no, it's a 1-star, and that's fair. It does take a while to get going, but I feel like that makes the twist that you come across that much more powerful, right? Like I said earlier, it's like you're just going through this daily routine and everything's the same.
And then something happens.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
So I feel like that really adds to it. So I promise if you can push through the first 8 chapters, it will be rewarding.
Yeah.
You just have to get there.
Well, the whole concept we've been talking about today is world building, right? And the intent of the author in doing that. And so hopefully our listeners can know that as they go into it and understand that there's a reason for all of it.
I feel like a murder or a mystery like that is intriguing in itself, but it's even more heightened and you buy into it and you want to know the details on how it reflects against your characters. And without building up your characters and building the world, a murder or mystery means nothing. So I think that in this case, it does, it's there for a reason. And get through those first 50 pages and it pays off.
Yes, absolutely.
The last review I'd like to go through here is from Carrie's Corner. It says, 5 glowing stars for this masterpiece. I don't read a lot of young adult/new adult at all. It's just not my jam. But written like this, I would all of the time. This book was an education that I desperately needed. I'm kind of speechless and humbled at the same time. Quote, it's hard when being native means different things depending on who's asking and why. To some people, you'll never be native enough. It's your identity, but it gets defined and controlled by other people, end quote. This quote I could identify with as a black woman, and I felt its truth to my core. As a teen, I could identify with the heroine Donis Fontaine and how she felt she didn't fit. She was a spectacular character and one that will stick with me for a while. I still refuse to believe that this is a debut novel. Like how? Masterpiece, I tell you. Thriller, suspense, a smidgen of romance, mystery. I would love to see this on film. The way this novel was written, I could literally see the inside of my head and feel my bones. I appreciate the realness in which the author wrote about drug abuse and how it is on reservations versus other places. The culture, tribal dances and rituals, and this whole world was just spectacular. The story truly deserves all the awards. I'm so glad I read it.
It's amazing.
I love this review. It touches on so many different things. I also do not read a lot of young adult books, but kind of made an exception for this one, and I'm so glad that I did. And yeah, this book is very educational in that way, despite being a novel. I feel like it really helps you build empathy, and your worldview is really expanded from reading it. And I also, the other part I really liked was the smidgen of romance, because it does start out looking like it's going to lean very heavily in the romance direction. And then everything happens, and Donis really just kind of puts that to the side because she's too busy focusing on all of these things that she has to work on. And so it's still there, but it's not like the trope that you think of when you think about young adult romance, right? Where that's always front and center. No, it's there and it's simmering, but she has more important things to focus on right now, which I thought was amazing.
It's just another great example of why this book feels fresh.
Yes, definitely.
I appreciate in this review their perspective, but also I appreciate how they touched upon that they'd love to see this adapted into film. I think that this person will be very happy to hear that, as we mentioned earlier, this was picked up by the Obama's production company to be a Netflix mini-series.
Oh, I was just going to ask if anyone knew if it was going to be a series or a film. I'm so glad to hear it's a series because of the world building we've been talking about.
I think that's something us as being library people experience, our disappointment when things are adapted and how much is left on the cutting room floor.
Yes.
I really hope that with the expanded length of being a miniseries, they can address the depth that this book has to offer.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds like we have a lot to look forward to.
It does. Well, thank you so much for sticking around for the 1-star, 5-star reviews. We really appreciate you coming out today and reading for us and telling us about this awesome book.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this book.
Stay tuned to hear Jen read the first chapter of The Firekeeper's Daughter.
All right. This is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. Chapter 1. I start my day before sunrise, throwing on running clothes and laying a pinch of sema at the eastern base of a tree where sunlight will touch the tobacco first. Prayers begin with offering sema and sharing my spirit name, clan, and where I am from. I always add an extra name to make sure Creator knows who I am. A name that connects me to my father, because I began as a secret and then a scandal. I give thanks to Creator and ask for Zungadewin because I'll need courage for what I have to do after my 5-mile run. I've put it off for a week. The sky lightens as I stretch in the driveway. My brother complains about my lengthy warm-up routine whenever he runs with me. I keep telling Levi that my longer, bigger, and therefore vastly superior muscles require more intensive preparation for peak performance. The real reason, which he would think is dorky, is that I recite the correct anatomical name for each muscle as I stretch. Not just the superficial muscles, but the deep ones, too. I want an edge over the other college freshmen in my human anatomy class this fall. By the time I finish my warm-up and anatomy review, the sun peeks through the trees. One ray of light shines on my Sema offering. Nishin, it is good. My first mile is always hardest. Part of me still wants to be in bed with my cat Harry, whose purrs are the opposite of an alarm clock. But if I power through, my breathing will find its rhythm, accompanied by the swish of my heavy ponytail. My legs and arms will operate on autopilot. That's when my mind will wander into the zone, where I'm part of this world, but also somewhere else, and the miles pass in a semi-alert haze. My route takes me through campus. The prettiest view in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan is on the other side. I blow a kiss as I run past Lake State's newest dorm, Fontaine Hall, named after my grandfather on my mother's side. My grandmother Mary, I call her Grand Mary, insisted I wear a dress to the dedication ceremony last summer. I was tempted to scowl in the photos, but I knew my defiance would hurt Mom more than it would tick off Grand Mary. I cut through the parking lot behind the Student Union toward the north end of campus. The bluff showcases a gorgeous panoramic view of the St. Mary's River, the International Bridge into Canada, and the city of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Nestled in the bend of the river east of town is my favorite place in the universe, Sugar Island. The rising sun hides behind a low, dark cloud at the horizon beyond the island. I halt in place, awestruck. Shafts of light fan out from the cloud as if Sugar Island is the source of the sun's rays. A cool breeze ruffles my t-shirt, giving me goosebumps in mid-August. Zisabaka Minising, I whisper in Anishinaabe, the name for the island, which my father taught me when I was little. It sounds like a prayer. My father's family, the Firekeeper side, is as much a part of Sugar Island as its spring-fed streams and sugar maple trees. When the cloud moves on and the sun reclaims her rays, a gust of wind propels me forward, back to my run and to the task ahead. 45 minutes later, I end my run at Evercare, a long-term care facility a few blocks from home. Today's run felt backward, peaking in the first mile and becoming progressively more difficult. I tried chasing the zone, but it was a mirage just beyond my reach. "Mornin', Donis," Mrs. Bonacera, the head nurse, says from behind the front desk. "Mary had a good night. Your mom's already here." Still catching my breath, I give my usual good morning wave. The hallway seems to lengthen with each step. I steel myself for possible responses to my announcement. In my imagined scenarios, a single furrowed brow conveys disappointment, annoyance, and the retracting of previous accolades. Maybe I should wait until tomorrow to announce my decision. Mrs. B didn't need to say anything. The heavy scent of roses in the hallway announces Mom's presence. When I enter the private room, she's gently massaging rose-scented lotion on my grandmother's thin arms. A fresh bouquet of yellow roses adds to the floral saturation level. Grand Mary's been at Evercare for 6 weeks now, and the month before that in the hospital. She had a stroke at my high school graduation party. Visiting every morning is part of the new normal, which is what I call what happens when your universe is shaken so badly you can never regain the same axis as before. But you try anyway. My grandmother's eyes connect with mine. Her left brow raises in recognition. Her right side is unable to convey anything. Bon matin, Grand Mary. I kiss both cheeks before stepping back for her inspection. In the before, her scrutiny of my fashion choices bugged the crap out of me. But now, her one-sided scowl at my oversized t-shirt feels like a perfect slapshot to the top shelf. See, I playfully lift my hem to reveal yellow spandex shorts. Not half naked. Halfway through her barely perceptible eye roll, Grand Mary's gaze turns vacant. It's like a light bulb behind her eyes that someone switches on and off arbitrarily. Give her a moment, Mom says, continuing to smooth lotion onto Grand Mary's arms. I nod and take in Grand Mary's room. The large picture window with a view of a nearby playground. The dry erase board with the heading, "Hello, my name is Mary Fontaine," and a line for someone to fill in after "my nurse." The line after my goals is blank. The vase of roses surrounded by framed photographs. Grandmary and Grandpa Lorenzo on their wedding day. A duo frame with Mom and Uncle David as praying angels in white First Communion outfits. My senior picture fills a silver frame engraved with Class of 2004. The last picture taken of the four of us Fontaines, me, Mom, Uncle David, and Grandmary, at my final hockey game brings a walnut-sized lump to my throat. I went to sleep many nights listening to Mom and her brother laughing, playing cards, and talking in the language they had invented as children, a hybrid of French, Italian, abbreviated English, and made-up nonsensical words. That was before Uncle David died in April, and Grandmary, grief-stricken, had an intracerebral hemorrhagic stroke 2 months later. My mother doesn't laugh in the new normal. She looks up. Her jade green eyes are tired and bloodshot. Instead of sleeping last night, Mom cleaned the house in a frenzy while talking to Uncle as if he were sitting on the sofa watching her dust and mop. She does this often. I wake up during those darkest hours when my mother confesses her loneliness and regrets to him, unaware that I am fluent in their secret language. While I wait for my grandmother to return to herself, I retrieve a lipstick from the basket on the bedside table. Grandmary believes in greeting the day with a perfect red smile. Gliding the matte ruby over her thin lips, I remember my earlier plea for courage. To know Zungadewan is to face your fears with a strong heart. My hand twitches, the golden tube of lipstick a jiggling needle on a seismograph. Mom finishes with the lotion and kisses Grandmary's forehead. I've been on the receiving end of those kisses so often that an echo of one warms my own forehead. I hope Grandmary can feel that good medicine even when the light bulb is off. When my grandmother was in the hospital, I kept track of how many times she blinked during the same 15-minute window each day. Mom didn't mind my record keeping until she noticed the separate tally marks for light bulb on and light bulb off. The overall number of blinks hadn't changed, but the percentage of alert ones, light bulb on divided by total blinks, had begun to decrease. My mother got so upset when she saw my tally that I keep the blink notebook hidden in Grandmary's private room now, bringing it out only when Mom isn't here. It happens. Grandmary blinks and her eyes brighten. Light bulb on. Just like that, her focus sharpens and she is once again a mighty force of nature, the Fontaine matriarch. Grandmary, I say quickly, I'm deferring my admission to U of M and registering for classes at Lake State, just for freshman year. I hold my breath, anticipating her disappointment in my deviation from the plan. Donis Lorenza Fontaine, M.D. At first, I went along with it, hoping to make her proud. I grew up overhearing people whisper with a sort of vicious glee about the big scandal of Mary and Lorenzo Fontaine's perfect life. I pretended so well and for so long that her plan became my plan, our plan. I loved that plan. But that was in the before. Grandmary fixes me with a gaze as tender as my mother's kisses. Something passes between my grandmother and me. She understands why I had to alter our plan. My nose tingles with pre-cry pinpricks from relief, sadness, or both. Maybe there's a word in Anishinaabe when you find solid footing in the rubble after a tragedy. Mom rushes around the bed, pulling me into an embrace that whooshes the air from my lungs. Her joyful sobs vibrate through me. I made my mother happy. I knew I would, but I didn't expect to feel such relief myself. She's been pushing for me not to go away to college, even encouraging Levi to pester me about it. Mom pleaded with me to fill out the Lake State admissions form back in January as a birthday gift to her. I agreed, thinking there was no way anything would come to pass. Turns out there was a way. A bird thuds against the window. My mother startles, releasing me from her grip. I only get 3 steps toward the window when the bird rises, fluttering to regain equilibrium before resuming its journey. Grandma Pearl, my Anishinaabe Nokomis on my Firekeeper side, considered a bird flying into a window a bad sign. She would rush outside, one leathered brown hand at her mouth, muttering, oh, at its crooked neck, before calling her sisters to figure out which tragedy was just around the corner. But Grandmary would say it was random and unfortunate, nothing more than an unintended consequence of a clean window. Indian superstitions are not facts, Donis. My Zanganash and Anishinaabe grandmothers could not have been more different. One viewed the world at its surface, while the other saw connections and teachings that run deeper than our known world. Their push and pull on me has been a tug of war my entire life. When I was 7, I spent a weekend at Grandma Pearl's tar paper house on Sugar Island. I woke up crying with an earache, but the ferry to the mainland had shut down for the night. She had me pee in a cup and poured it into my ear as I rested my head in her lap. Back home for Sunday dinner at Grandmary and Grandpa Lorenzo's, I excitedly shared how smart my other grandmother was. Grandma Pearl fixed my earache with my pee! Grandmary recoiled, and a heartbeat later glared at my mother as if this was her fault. Something split inside me when I saw my mother's embarrassment. I learned there were times when I was expected to be a Fontaine and other times when it was safe to be a Firekeeper. Mom returns to Grandmary, removing the cashmere blanket aside to massage lotion on a spindly alabaster leg. She's exhausting herself looking after my grandmother. Mom is convinced she will recover. My mother has never been good at accepting unpleasant truths. A week ago, I woke up during one of Mom's cleaning frenzies. I've lost so much, David, and now her. When Donis leaves, je disparaîtrai. She used the French word for disappear, to fade or pass away. 18 years ago, my arrival changed my mother's world, ruined the life her parents had preordained for her. I am all she has left in this world. Grandma Pearl always told me bad things happen in threes. Uncle David died in April. Grandmary had a stroke in June. If I stay home, I can stop the third bad thing from happening, even if it means waiting a little longer to follow the plan. I should go. I kiss Mom and then Grandmary goodbye. As soon as I leave the facility, I break into a run. I usually walk the few blocks home as a cool down, but today I sprint until I reach my driveway. Gasping, I collapse beneath my prayer tree, waiting for my breath to return. Waiting for the normal part of the new normal to begin.
Thanks for listening. Feel free to email us at podcast@myjdl.com with any thoughts you have about our reading from today, any materials you think we should touch on in future episodes, or any questions you may have about library materials, events, or services. Any views or opinions expressed by the hosts or their guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Jackson District Library as a whole. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only.